This fandom has achieved wonders. We've allowed ourselves to get lost. You guys are used to seeing somebody who hides behind a mask. Well, now, the people that hide behind the mask answer to me.
The whole James Gunn versus Zack Snyder fan war has been dragging on for years, but lately it feels like it's hit a new low. Ever since the new Superman movie was announced, it started picking up some attention. Some Snyder fans have been acting completely unhinged. There are claims of them trashing merchandise in stores, threads filled with conspiracy theories, and a lot of weird obsessive energy that doesn't really feel like regular movie discourse anymore. Now, I already went through the history of all of this in a previous video, so this isn't going to be a full-on breakdown. This is more of a check-in on how things have escalated since then, how certain parts of the fandom are reacting, and why it's gotten so weird lately. Most people seem excited to see what a fresh, more uplifting take on Superman could look like. Gunn's movie is aiming to bring some joy and hope back into the character, but instead of engaging with that idea, certain corners of the Snyder fandom are fully melting down.
I'll never watch Birds of Prey. Oh yeah.
Let's start with a guy who recently went semi-viral in this bizarre niche for making a Backstreet Boys parody called I Want It Zack's Way.
Snyder.
What the fuck am I watching?
He rewrote the lyrics to mourn the loss of the Snyderverse and performed it with a level of sincerity that makes it genuinely hard to tell if it's satire or an honest tribute. Either way, it's very uncomfortable to watch.
I want it Zack's way.
But what really raised some eyebrows was something that he posted not long after. He shared a photo of himself at a football game with a teenage girl and explained that outside of his wife, she's the only person he spends time with. He called her his real-life best friend. Now, I'm going to blur out her face because she's a minor and this is already towing into very strange territory, but it's worth pointing out how bizarre it is. Not just because of the age gap, but because this is what he chose to share publicly. This is the version of himself that he wants people to see. This level of parasocial sincerity is what's so off-putting. We're not just talking about someone who likes a filmmaker, we're seeing someone whose emotional world seems wrapped around the mythos of the Snyderverse and filtered into their real-life relationships and self-image. The lines between fandom identity and social isolation start to blur, and what we're left with is less of a film community and more of a coping mechanism. That's what makes it so unsettling. It's not a parody, it's the depth of the attachment. Now let's talk about the Lethal Geeks. This is a YouTube podcast account that's basically turned their entire identity into shouting about how the Snyderverse will be restored any day now. Every post is either a vague, trust the plan style update, or another recycled promise that Zack Snyder's DC plans were always meant to be a 5-part saga, and there are operatives working at Warner Brothers that are secretly waiting to finish it. It's reached the point where it starts to feel like QAnon, but for people who collect Funko Pops. And this is the account responsible for most of the ridiculous tweets in this whole saga as of late. Here's my favorite. Word for word, I promise I didn't change anything. What part is it that you don't get? That a 52-year-old man like myself does not in any way, shape, or form find this appealing. Hank, I have no desire to remember myself in the 5th grade. I get it. You're a teacher, so your bias is going to skew for your students, so I get that. What you don't get is Gunn trying to turn the entirety of DC into Marvel, thus alienating half the fan base, the adult half. The half that wants an adult conclusion to this. Let's break this down. First of all, this guy is 52 years old and he's arguing on Twitter with strangers about superhero aesthetics like it's life or death. That alone should be enough to give you pause. Then he insists that enjoying anything remotely hopeful or child-friendly is some kind of personal regression. He uses the 5th grade as shorthand for weakness. He even throws shade at the guy he's replying to, blaming his profession as a teacher for why he might like a version of Superman that isn't dark and brooding. And the part that really seals it is when he says Gunn is alienating the adult half of the fan base. He capitalizes it like it's a movement. Like, if you don't want Superman to be miserable, then you must not be a grown-up. It's a rant that says way more about his self-image than it does about the actual movie. This guy doesn't want a story, he wants validation. From there, the tweets from other accounts only get worse. There's one from someone named Serena Olvido who tweeted out, "What an effing downgrade from Henry Cavill's legendary Man of Steel to this ridiculous David's corny sweat broccoli super flop. I will remember you when that disgusting movie will super flop and will be buried on Mac service just a few days after hahaha F low Sir MF Guntard." The entire post reads like a meltdown typed out mid-temper tantrum. There's no logic, just emojis, rage, and the word flop being hurled around like it's an argument. They don't ever explain what they dislike about Cornsweat's take or even what they value in Cavill's. It's just noise. Then there's this tweet where someone claims that they bought the last Superman toy at Walmart, saw a child crying about it, and decided to laugh and destroy the toy in front of him because the kid was a Gunn fan. It's a fantasy. It didn't happen. But the fact that the poster wants it to feel real is telling. That's the world they want to live in, one where humiliating a child makes you the hero. Finally, there's a post from two grown men standing in a yard doing construction work. Whilst you James Gunn fans are sucking on your mom's tit and whining about Superman AI art, real men are doing man stuff. One of them is wearing a Superman shirt, and the caption is all about how real men don't cry about AI art like James Gunn fans. Instead, they build things. It's an odd flex, like they're literally just doing manual labor and using that as a reason for why their opinion on superhero movies is more valid. That's how far out of hand this has all gotten. They turned yard work into a culture war. The truth is, you don't need to argue with these people. You don't have to correct them, quote tweet them, or try to win them over. That only feeds the cycle. The smartest thing you can do is mute, block, and move on. It helps to point out when something's clearly off, especially if it's crossing lines or flooding public conversations, but after that, there's just no value in staying locked into it. Letting this stuff live rent-free in your head won't change their minds. It'll just exhaust yours. What's actually happening here has less to do with movies and more to do with identity. A lot of these people grew up loving superheroes, but somewhere along the way, they started to feel embarrassed by that. Maybe it was pressure from peers, maybe it was a fear of being seen as childish, or maybe they just never learned how to enjoy something without needing to be validated by others. So when Snyder came along and made these stories darker, more intense, and wrapped them in the language of epic myth, it gave them something to hold on to. It made the genre feel serious. It gave them permission to still care. But now that DC is shifting towards something a little brighter, something more emotionally open and sincere, that sense of safety is gone. They feel like they're losing the version of these characters that help them feel less self-conscious. So instead of adapting, they double down. They mock anything optimistic, they lash out at actors, directors, and they cling to whatever makes their taste feel more adult, even if that word doesn't mean anything in this context. This behavior doesn't come from a place of strength, it comes from insecurity, and if you try to meet it head-on with logic or empathy, you'll only get pulled into the performance. You're not obligated to fix it, you're allowed to walk away. But that's just my theory. And with all that out of the way, I'm Cole McCormick, you're watching Firewood Media. Huge thanks to our channel members. Your support makes these videos possible for $1.99 a month. The executive producer tier gets you loyalty badges, custom emoji, early access to videos, exclusive content, and your name and the credits of every film I make. At $50, the custom video tier includes all of that plus a personalized video that will be posted to the channel on any YouTube-friendly topic that you choose. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.